What's up, everybody? All right, thanks for tuning in as we start our debate coverage here. Let's get some mood lighting happening. Can go ahead and get a little bit of light right there, which you can't see. That's okay. Get a little bit of light right here. Boom. And a little light right there. Why not? All right. What's up, Red Wing? Silver Fox, rolling. What's up, everybody? So we're getting going here in just a little bit. Just had her come out and kind of do a little intro, thank the families for being there, that sort of thing. So, you know what? I need to change this. So let's do that. Let's see. Stream daily, 3 to 6 p.m. We'll just go with Eastern. Do. It's a little. There we go. That works. I was trying to set up the contest thing, and I ran into a couple of hiccups on the contest thing, so we'll make do. Alright, I think we're good there. They're just getting established and getting set up, so hopefully everybody is having a good evening. Hey, what's up, Terry? How you doing? I've been educating so many people using your website. Thanks for all of your hard work and diligence. Oh, thank you. Like theburningtruth.us, that website? Here we go. We got peg leg here. Hey, make sure you share and let everybody know about this. In fact, I've got to do that. It would be probably wise if I did. Oh, was Wallace just on Fox? Yeah. Oh, very cool. Very cool. I'm glad that is that's happening. My traffic has been up quite a bit. You know what I just found out recently? I just found out that I have a large number of people in Croatia who listen to my show. Isn't that weird? I didn't expect that at all. It was very, very strange, but go figure. So it's like, all right, well, what do you know? So I have conservative in the title of the video today, which means we will probably get some trolls floating around, so there is that. I'm going to pause myself on DLive. Oh, man. Uh-oh, that's not good. Printing something right now on the 3D printer. If it finishes in time, we'll assemble it while we're live on the air. It's a little Star Wars speeder. Never Biden. I like that. That's a good one. That's a good one. We got some good stickers for everybody. So they're not releasing any audio yet. She was just talking to the crowd. For those of you who missed it, she was just talking to the crowd, and I had a little intro and all of that stuff, and then she went back to go ahead and get prepared. So they cut the feed until that ends up happening. So we got some. I'll put some stickers up that a lot of people request us for. There's some Trump stuff. Oh yeah, gotta have the dude, that mask one is so good. You finally made it to DLive. Had to download the app to make it work. Well, we told you to give it a go. The app was probably going to be your best bet. And, I mean, people have some issues with it. So I think I figured out what's been going on with my camera. I think that it's the different scenes that I have in my streaming software. So, like, you set up scenes, right? And then you can switch back and forth between the scenes. And I think what is happening is more than one scene is using the camera, and so it's registering that the camera's jacked up. Like, for instance, it's the same camera, but it's a different codec that I'm using now than I use for my live stream. It is the exact same thing. Exact same thing. But it is different. You know what I mean? Like, the color's different, the resolution's different, like, everything is weird. So I don't know exactly what's going on. Now, what I have noticed, though, is on this camera, you can pick your resolution. So real quick, hold on. I want to test something. Hey, I'm happy to do the host. No problem. Let's go over to what my stream looks like during the radio show. All right. You can still hear me, but you can't see the camera because the camera is not functional right now. I have to unplug it and plug it back in for some reason. See, it's letting you do the it's letting you do that as well. That's weird. It's very, very weird. All right, well, back to the watch party. I don't know what the deal is. So the best stickers that you guys got, post them, because we like collecting stickers here. Stickers are always good. Stickers are always fun. We enjoy those. So please, please post them. What's this one? I don't even remember what that one was. Oh man, whatever that was got removed. What was that? I don't even remember what it was. I saved it, but whatever it was, it got removed for some reason. Well, that sucks. Hey, got your standard. We're going to see a lot of that tonight. We're going to see tons of that tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Plenty of that. No, the hot dogs. Oh, my God. Oh, that's great. I mean, I got that. Those hot dogs are fantastic. Oh, jeez. Oh, I thought I had the Epstein one. I apparently didn't have the Epstein one. Did I post the cool toilet one? Oh, here we go. Here we go. It's time to do this. All right, I'm going to turn this up a little bit.
Vice Presidential Debate of 2020.
All right.
Sponsored by the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm Susan.
Share and
Page of
host, ladies and
USA
gentlemen.
Today.
Share and host.
It is my honor
And don't forget to
to
follow.
moderate
We
this
stream every day at 3.
An important part of our democracy. In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience, and we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic. Among other things,
I like that one.
everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask, and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart. The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate, and now, when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
Did you guys see my article about the plexiglass today? Guy's pitching a hissy fit over the plexiglass because it doesn't work. All right, I need that rhino. That's cool. There we go.
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here. We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus. The two campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching. One note,
She's doing
no
it
one
for
in
us.
either campaign or at the commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask.
It should
This
save it,
90-minute
yeah.
debate will
It
be
should
divided
save
into
this for
9
3 days,
segments
Alex.
of about 10 minutes each. I'll begin a segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me or the other candidate. Then we'll take 6 minutes or so to discuss the issue. At that point, although there will always be more to say, we'll move on to the next topic. We want a debate that is lively, but Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are tumultuous times,
God.
but we can and will have a respectful exchange about
Unlike the
big
last
issues
one, which is all Trump's fault.
Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our
Patronizing as
country
hell.
so much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have
Oh,
had
she's
more COVID
drawing
cases
conclusions
over the
now,
past
huh?
7 days than in the week before. 9 states
It's
have
not
set
under
new
control.
records.
Okay.
Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots, a federal mandate to wear masks. You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country.
False.
And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers.
False.
We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing.
Because of shutdown
On
policies.
January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people.
It's
and
airborne.
that
She said it.
Would be
She said it.
contracted because it is airborne.
She said it.
And they knew what was happening and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up.
You know who they did tell?
The president
They
said
told
it was a
Democrats in
hoax.
Congress who didn't tell you
They
either.
minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan.
Yeah,
They still
they do.
don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does.
It's called Operation
And our
Lightspeed.
plan is about what we need
Warp
to
speed.
do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has.
Trump
that
already
I
made the
have,
vaccine free
knowing
for
that
all
we
Americans.
have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited
Thank you,
their
Senator.
right to re-election based
So,
on this.
cool.
Thank
We're
you,
starting
sir.
off with lies. There's that.
Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth.
Not true.
For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country?
Not
And
true.
You have 2 minutes to
It's
respond
not true.
without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you.
I don't
Our
think she
nation's
acknowledged
gone
him,
through
did
a very
she?
challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second
Yep.
largest economy in the world.
While Democrats said he was fear-mongering.
Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision.
Yep.
He said it was xenophobic and
Yep.
hysterical.
Yep.
But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115 million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the delivery of billions of supplies so our doctors and nurses had the resource and support they needed. And we began, really before the month of February was out, to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe, will have literally tens of millions of doses of vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way.
True.
And quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. I think the American people know that this is a president who has put the
Thank you,
health of
Vice
America first.
That
and
was
American
good.
People, I believe with my heart, can be
Thank you,
proud
Vice
of the
President.
sacrifices
That was really good.
It saved
Thank you,
countless
Mr.
American lives.
I've been saying this for months. Everything that Trump does, Biden comes out and says he'll
Whatever the
do,
Vice
like,
President
months
claiming
afterwards.
The administration has done. Clearly, it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in
Okay.
our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving.
The only
that
country,
loss.
well, two
And, you
countries
know,
in the world, Singapore and Sweden.
Vice
They're the only
President
ones that have
is
made
the
it work.
head of the task force.
They're the only ones.
And knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then, thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
So no, but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to
have
add.
to-
but
Friendly
Mr. Vice
reminder,
President,
they
I'm
briefed,
speaking.
I have to-
I'm
they
speaking.
briefed the House Intelligence
Yep,
Committee
you go
and they
ahead.
briefed the
One more
entire
second,
Senate.
and then we'll give the
And
Vice
almost no
President
senators
So I
showed
wanna
up
ask the
because
American
it was the
people,
last
how
day for the
calm were you
impeachment
when you
question
panicked
submission.
About where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm
Thank
were
you.
you
Thank
when
you,
your
Senator
children
Harris.
couldn't see your parents because you were afraid?
Hey,
they
look
could kill
who's
them?
violating the
Let's
rules.
give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to
You know,
respond.
there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great
Correct
disservice
comment.
to the sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to you,
reality,
President.
if I may finish, Senator,
That is
the
true.
reality is Dr. Fauci said,
There is an
everything
overestimate
that
of
he told
deaths,
the
no
president
doubt.
in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans.
Yep.
But that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us, if
President
we did
Pence.
everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
That's
Vice
true.
Now,
President
one
Pence.
life lost is too
Thank you.
many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior administration.
What?
No social distancing, few masks, and now
Oh my
a cluster
God.
of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect
It was a super
Americans to
spreader
follow
event.
the
Everybody
administration's
tested
safety
negative
guidelines
before they
to
went into the
protect
Rose
themselves
Garden.
from COVID
Everybody.
when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and,
There's 8 people?
and their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what
New
needed
York,
to be done.
Pennsylvania,
The American
Michigan
people made
violated the
sacrifices.
CDC guidelines
When the
with the
outbreak in the
nursing
Sun
homes.
Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes
That's
on.
correct.
A vacancy on the Supreme Court of
I've
the
talked
United
about the
States
CDC website
has
repeatedly.
come upon us, and the President introduced Judge
That's
Amy
why it
Coney
was
Barrett.
important
Thank
that
you.
she
Thank
said
you,
it was
Vice
airborne.
President.
That, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested
Yes.
for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank
the
you, Vice
Green New
President Pence.
Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage.
Except you're not
to be a
telling them the
leader
truth
speaking of
about
those things
President
that you
Trump
may not want
acting
people to hear, but
3
they
months
need to
before
hear so they can
Democrats wanted
protect
to.
themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked about
It is asking too much of the people. That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect
Susan,
their parents and their children.
They're repeating
Kamala
debunked
Harris-
talking
Senator
points is
Harris,
all they're
I'm
doing.
sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator
And the
Harris
moderator is
to me.
going to help her with it.
For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or
Whoa.
after the election,
Hold
should
on.
Americans take it, and would you take it?
Kamala
If
Harris
the
said she wouldn't
public
trust the
health
vaccine.
professionals, If Dr. Fauci, if the doctor.
She didn't hit Kamala Harris on that. Kamala said she wouldn't take it.
Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a
Wow.
lot of repercussions in this
Wow.
pandemic. In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters.
And his mind's already half
concerns that have
gone.
been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on
well,
to the
thank
issue
you,
of
but I would like to
vice
go back
presidency.
because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you,
Thank you
stop
for the
playing
follow,
politics
tacos.
with people's lives. The reality is that we will have a vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is just, it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, you know, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic.
She does
It was
every time she looks at the
2009.
TV.
The swine flu arrived in the United States.
Oh, I
Thankfully,
knew it.
it was ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu. 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last
Yup.
year
Yup.
that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong.
Yep.
And we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty.
Yep.
They left an empty and hollow plan, but we
Thank you,
still
Vice
learned
President
from it.
Pence.
And I think
Vice
the
President
American
Pence, your
people,
time
I
is
want
up.
to say again, can be proud.
Vice President Pence, I'm
Kamala
sorry.
can
what
deny
we've
that
done.
all she wants.
Senator,
The
please
Government
Thank you,
Accountability
Vice
Office
undermine
confirmed it.
confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let
There
me
were
ask you
no
the same question that I
PPE
asked
equipment left.
Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call. asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud. She must be looking down on this. Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service,
She was
and about
just
the importance of fighting for the dignity
she
of
was
all people.
just
And I think
referring to
Joe
him
asked me to serve with him
for
because,
being
I have a career
a
that
racist
included being elected
companion
the first woman
not that
district
long ago.
attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first woman of color and black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice.
Now she's black. She's not Indian American. She's black American now.
Department of Justice.
African American.
And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking
None of
advantage
this
homeowners,
has anything to
to
do with the
for-profit
question.
colleges that
She
were
keeps
taking advantage
refusing to
of it.
answer, just like Biden did.
And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate.
What
I
would
serve
you
on
do
the
to
Senate
not get the
Intelligence
virus?
Committee, where I've been in
Let me tell you my
regular
life
receipt
story.
of classified information.
You know what this
about
is?
threats to
This
our
is
nation
like
and
an
hotspots around the
Epicurious
world. I've traveled
recipe
the world.
blog.
I've
You
met
just want the
with our
recipe, but they have to
soldiers
tell you
in
their
our
whole life story in
war
500
zones.
words before you get it.
And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share a purpose, which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Neither
Did not answer it.
President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed
Moderator's
health
just gonna
information
skip over a
that had
second
become
question
the
she
modern
didn't answer.
norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my question to each of you in turn is this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus. But the care the President received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced.
No
all
problem,
along the way
Poppin.
will
Tune in
continue.
every day at 3 for the radio
American
show.
People have a
We live
right
stream
to
it
know
here.
about the health and well-being.
Ah,
of the
Irish
President.
ND USAF.
We'll
Thank you for the
continue to
follow.
do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern.
Everything that Pence has
I also
done
want to congratulate
has
you,
been about compassion
as I did on that phone call,
and honoring people
on the
with the
historic
virus.
nature of your
And all
nomination.
Kamala has done is attack.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher,
Thank
but I
you.
think the
Thank
choice
you,
has
Vice
never
President
been
Pence.
clearer.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about
I wish
presidential
Pence would just go,
candidates, and
she didn't
especially
answer
about
your last
presidents,
question. She can take my time to
especially
answer it
when they're
now.
facing some kind
That
of-
would be a great moment.
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now
Ooh,
know,
taxes.
because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750
No, he didn't.
in taxes.
No, he
When I
didn't.
first heard about it,
Paid
I
millions.
literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know.
Wow, that's real
who
condescending.
The President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know.
Now he
what
owes
is
money
influencing
to
the president's
people,
decisions. And is he making
Russians.
those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you? or self-interest. So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency.
Yeah, she's going to
Because
get
it has to be across
fact-checked
the board.
up the
Joe
wazoo
has been incredibly transparent over many,
tomorrow
many
and
years.
tonight.
The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there.
Does he? Is Joe
is
Biden telling
honest,
everybody
he
that his
is
family uses an
forthright.
S corp to avoid spending
Donald Trump, on the other hand,
$500,000
has been about
in taxes
covering
and
up
to avoid
everything.
contributing to
Thanks.
Social
Thank you,
Security and
Senator Harris. I wanna
Medicare?
give you a
Does Joe
chance
Biden
to
tell
answer
everybody that?
questions.
Kamala?
Look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
The American people have a president who's a businessman, who's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of
And that
American jobs.
$750 was
And the president
after an
said those
adjustment
public
because he had
reports
overpaid
were
and there was a
not
credit.
accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
And
President.
turned this economy
He's not
around
getting
by
as much
cutting
time as
taxes,
she is.
rolling back regulation,
Thank you,
unleashing
Vice
American
President.
energy,
The
fighting for
time
free and
maps
fair
on this
trade,
after this is
and
done
all of
Thank-
that's
thank you,
are going to
Vice
show
Joe Biden and Kamala
that
Harris.
this lady is
that's a
cutting
good
him off
segue into
way
our
quicker.
third topic,
Segue.
which is about the economy. This has been another aspect of life for Americans that's been so affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking
And
for work.
why did those
Nearly
layoffs
11
happen?
million jobs that
Because
existed
the
at beginning of
Democrats
the
didn't
year
pass a
haven't been
stimulus,
replaced.
and
Those
because
hardest
Democrats
hit
across the
include
country
Latinos,
are maintaining
blacks, and women.
lockdowns, which are not doing anything.
Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations.
Is it her or the next
Some
one?
economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial
It's her,
ventures
yeah.
that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2
She's
minutes to
silent.
answer uninterrupted.
Thank you.
Oh, now it's uninterrupted.
On the issue
Okay.
of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe
Yeah,
Biden.
I wish.
Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is
Record
invest it in the
revenue to
American
the federal
people.
government after that
And
tax
through
bill was
a plan
passed.
that is about investing in infrastructure,
Huge
something that
surge
Donald Trump
in new
said he'd
revenue
do.
to the
I remember
government.
hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do
So
that. He'll
Biden
invest
and
in
Kamala have
infrastructure. It's
now
about
admitted that
upgrading
they're
our
gonna
roads
raise
and
your
bridges,
taxes.
But also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development so that we were an innovation leader on the globe. Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education. So for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free. And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut
Yep.
by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country as opposed to passing a tax bill, which had the benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
Thank you,
You're
Senator
welcome.
Harris.
Did she really
Vice
just
President
argue that
Pence, your
Trump let
administration has been
corporations go
predicting a
offshore?
Rapid and robust recovery. But the latest economic report suggests that's not
Oh my
happening.
God.
Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year?
The latest
or
economic
more?
numbers are
You have 2
actually
minutes to
really
answer
good.
Uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. So when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes across the board. Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of four had $2,000 in savings and taxes.
Yep.
And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hard-working Americans,
Yep.
the average household income for a family of four increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts.
Largest amount of
In America, you
discretionary
just heard
funds
Senator
American
Harris
workers have ever had.
On day one, Joe
With
Biden's gonna
adjusted
raise your
dollars.
taxes. It's really remarkable to think. I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs
Yep.
because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China, that when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth
Thank you,
and
sir.
opportunity,
Thank you,
4
Vice
more
President.
years of President Donald Trump. 2021
Thank
is
you,
going
Vice
to be the
President
biggest
Pence.
economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000
He said
a
he's going to
year.
repeal the Trump
Yeah.
tax cut.
Yeah. He just said he was
Mr.
going to
Vice
repeal
President,
it.
I'm speaking.
Well,
I'm speaking.
it'd be important if you said the truth.
Yeah.
Joe Biden has
Oh,
said twice in the debate
smoked
last week
her.
that he's going to
She didn't know what
repeal
to say.
the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts
Smoked
that
her.
gave the
She
average
did
working
not know what to
family
say.
$2,000.
Good for
tax
Pence.
break every single year.
That is,
Senator,
that is
that's the math.
absolutely not true. That
Is he
tax
only
bill-
cutting? Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then
Please.
have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit when they rode the coattails
No.
of Joe Biden's success.
No, they
For
didn't.
the economy
That
they
argument
had
doesn't
at
work.
the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster. But Joe Biden, on
Oh
the one
yeah.
hand,
The
did that.
economy
On the
is
other hand, you have Donald
Trump's
Trump,
fault. Right.
who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act, which brought health care to over 20
Which
million
is a
Americans
terrible,
and protected
horrible
people
bill,
with pre-existing
and
conditions.
everybody
And what it
is
also
still
did
suffering because of it.
is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of
Thank you, Senator
trying to
Harris.
get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but we
important
need to give we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you.
No, they're
If
not.
you love someone who has a pre-existing
It's not.
condition,
Thank you.
Every
Thank you,
Republican
Senator.
proposal
if
maintains
you are
pre-existing
under the
conditions.
Age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're
Let me
welcome.
give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster.
Yup.
The American people remember
Yep.
it well. President Trump and I have a plan to improve health care and to protect pre-existing conditions for every American. But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking.
Yup.
Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee
Yep.
that we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation, banning fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now
Thank you,
will
Conjo.
continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change. And Vice President Pence, I'd like to pose the first question to you.
Climate change
This
is
year
a part
we've
of every
seen
debate now
record-setting
because it's the only thing
hurricanes in
that
the South.
Democrats
Another one,
poll
Hurricane
well
Delta,
on.
is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West. Do you believe, as the scientific community has concluded,
No,
that
they haven't.
man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly?
And the scientific
and have
community
made
says that's
hurricanes wetter,
false.
slower, and more damaging? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. Well, first, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded. And our water
Yep.
is among the cleanest
True.
in the world. And just a little while ago, the President signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing. The issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families in their homes, and literally would crush American jobs. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's remarkable is the United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still
Yes.
in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done
True.
it through innovation. And we've done it through natural gas and fracking.
True. True.
Which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden.
We outperformed all of
says
the Kyoto
otherwise now,
nations,
as
too.
You do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning
Yep.
fracking.
I just posted
So by
a quote
creating
from
the kind of
Forbes magazine in
American
July
innovation,
about Biden
we're
saying just
actually
that.
steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult
you.
as they are,
Thank you, Vice President
there are
Pence.
no more hurricanes today than
Thank
there
you.
were 100 years
Yep.
ago.
Thank
That's
you.
true.
But many of the climate
I've actually been on a
alarms,
downturn for several
hurricanes
years.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods of a
Pence.
Green New Deal. And President Trump and I are going to always
Yeah, we
put
beat
American
out,
jobs
Vice
and
President.
we
American
reduced emissions
workers
more than all of the
first.
Kyoto nations.
Senator Harris,
And
as
Kyoto
the Vice President
Protocol
mentioned,
ended
you
up
co-sponsored the
leading
Green New Deal in
to
Congress.
more emissions and
But Vice President
deforestation.
Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris
It says it
campaign
right on the
it
website that he
describes
does support the Green New Deal.
as a
It's
crucial
right on
framework.
Biden's website.
What exactly
Straight up
would be
lied.
the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact.
He campaigned
I
on
will
banning fracking.
Repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year.
Except he's going to
Joe
repeal
Biden's
the Trump
economic
tax
plan,
cuts.
Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the
As
Gulf
it always
states,
has.
which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa whose entire crops have been destroyed because of
That's a fair
floods.
point.
And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, you know, the science is telling us this, you know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who
Donald
is
Trump
prepared
has
to
quoted
lead our
every
country
wildfire
over the course of
expert
the next
over the
4
past
years
decade who has
on
come
what
out
is
and
an
said the exact
existential
same thing
threat to
that
us as
Donald Trump
human
and everybody
beings.
else has said
Joe
about the
is about
wildfires
saying
and
we're gonna
management of
invest that
forestry in
renewable
California.
Energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions
Exactly.
by 2050,
Exactly, Phil.
carbon neutral by 2035. Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris
Oh,
just
we'll
said
re-enter
that
it with
climate
pride.
change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day one he was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
And
Those
Harris
tax
just
cuts
said it.
delivered $2,000 in tax relief to the average family of 4 across America. And with regard to banning fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden denied
Which calls for the
Green
banning
New
of
Deal,
fracking, by the
Susan,
way.
Thank you for pointing out the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look, the American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great
Exactly,
progress
Roland.
reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden
If you
wants
haven't
us
yet,
to
folks,
retrofit
please hit that
4
follow
million
button
Thank you, Vice
American
and follow me
business
here on D
buildings.
Live.
It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump
Thank
is
you,
going to
Vice
put
President.
America first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care of our environment and follow the science.
Thank
But
you, Vice
you know,
President.
on the issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war.
No, he
You
didn't.
lost it.
No, he didn't.
What ended up
He
happening
clearly won that
is
trade war.
because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs.
No.
Farmers
America's
have
added
experienced
manufacturing
bankruptcy
jobs.
because of it. We are in a
We
manufacturing
just added like
recession
30,000 more
because
last
of it.
month.
And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration.
Pandemic doesn't
and
count.
the American people know what I'm talking about. You know. I think about 20-year-olds. You know, we have
Trump
a
mismanaged
20-year-old,
the economy because there's a
20-something
pandemic. Right.
year-old
Okay.
who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent by the end of the month.
Which is why it would be great for
This is where
Democrats
the
to go ahead and
economy
pass a
is in
stimulus
America right
package
now,
and
it is
send them a
because
check.
of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you just 15 seconds to respond because then I want to move on. To
Well, I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden's been a cheerleader for communist China over the last several decades.
Yes.
And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. And President Obama said they were never coming back.
Yep.
He said we needed a magic wand to
Yep.
bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut
Thank
taxes,
you, Vice
rolled back
President.
regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration saw 500,000
Thank you, Vice
manufacturing
President
jobs
Pence.
created.
Here's an
That's
article
exactly the
on
kind of
Joe
growth we're gonna
Biden's
continue to see
lying
as we
about
bring our nation
his
through
Thank you,
tough
Vice
China
President.
talk right now.
But a
Mr.
Green New
Thank you,
Deal, your
Vice
massive
President
new
Pence.
mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I'd like
Susan,
to,
I just need to
Boom.
respond very briefly,
15
please.
seconds, and
Thank
then
you.
we'll move
Thank
on.
you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against
No,
it.
no, he
so
isn't.
let's set the record straight. Thank you.
That's not the
I'd
record.
like to talk about China. We have, as our next topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for
General
American
Motors survived.
agricultural goods.
Everybody
It's
else paid a price.
Potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
Here's the
Thank you,
truth
Susan.
about the auto industry and the bailout.
Let me, before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump
Yep.
fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land. American people deserve to know.
Which Biden says is better than
Senator
NAFTA,
Kamala
by the way.
Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator,
Thanks, Daniel.
you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. And the American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate
That is
in
true.
2019. More liberal than Bernie Sanders.
That is true.
More liberal than
We talked about
any
that
of
in the show.
others in the United States Senate. So now with regard to China, look, Susan, first and
Her
foremost,
body language is real bad tonight. She's not handling.
China is to
She's not
blame
handling
for
this very well.
And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February.
Yep.
Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China. And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it
Thank
was
you, Vice
xenophobic.
President Pence.
But President Trump has
Vice President
stood
Pence,
up
your
to
time is
China.
up.
We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold
Vice President
China
Pence.
accountable for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship
She's
with
on
China?
something.
Are we competitors, adversaries, enemies? You'll have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Susan, the Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that
What?
President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got away, they got rid of it.
No, they didn't.
There
No, they didn't.
was a team
No, they didn't.
of
That is a
disease
lie. They
experts
did not.
that
They did not get rid of that.
President Obama and Vice President Biden
Did not
dispatched
get rid
to
of that.
China
That is a flat
to
out lie.
monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans
That
who have
is,
lost
God,
their
that was a
lives.
debunked lie a long
Let's
time
look
ago.
at the job situation. we mentioned before, the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war.
The consumer price index showed
And let's talk
almost
about
no
Sandra
change in
Pew,
consumer
a
prices
reputable
per
research
item.
firm,
It was not noticeable
done an
by
analysis
most American consumers.
that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years.
Yeah, it's
And
increased.
of course, times do change.
It's
What's your definition?
straight up increased.
We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies.
No, we
in
haven't.
Europe and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership?
We
in
have no.
2020?
Our relationships with our allies are better
So,
than they have been in a
you know,
long
Joe is-
time.
I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, you know, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, you know, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And
Joe Biden
so
has
we
been
know this
wrong
in our
on nearly
personal
every
professional
foreign policy
relationships.
position
You gotta keep your word
in
to
the
your
past,
friends.
what, 20 years, 30 years?
Gotta
Is
be
that
loyal
what
to your
the
friends.
the guy
People who've
said?
stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So, Russia, I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of
Nobody's
the FBI,
denied
said
that.
the same. But Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community.
Trump never denied,
You look at
never
our
denied
friends
that.
at
That
NATO.
never happened.
He has walked away from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position
Which was a
where
disaster.
we are less safe because they are building up what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism, he pulled us out and has
Yes,
made
they were,
America
Daniel.
less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships. And the thing that has always been part of the strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did.
True.
We stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to
Yep.
President Trump's
Yep.
leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia Pacific,
Yep.
and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania.
True.
But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their leader, al-Baghdadi, without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands. But notably, America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, the parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, two of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other Beetle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller.
Yep.
breaks my heart to
Chose not
reflect
to.
on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
It's
Thank
true.
you, Vice
Look, we
President.
They did say
destroyed the
that.
ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And we traced where they used that money, too, by the way.
Thank you, Vice President.
The money that was given to them on those
President
pallets
Donald
was
Trump
used to
took
Thank you,
finance
Vice
terror
President.
operations
America
inside the
is-
Middle
is
East and
safer.
Iraq.
Our allies are safer. And the
That is
American
according
people
to
know
the American
President Donald
intelligence
Trump
community.
will never
Thank you, Vice President
take
Pence.
action.
I would like to give
I'd-
Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of
Hey,
course,
if you're a
there are other
Discord
topics we
member,
want to talk about.
But I would
Go
like
onto the Discord
Yes.
server, and in
Please go
the
ahead.
top left-hand side, you will see
First
a
of all, to the
contests
Mueller
channel.
family,
It's brand new.
I know
Go ahead and
about
comment
your
in that
daughters,
channel for a chance to
and
win
I'm
that
so
Trump
sorry.
Punisher skull
I'm so sorry.
made by
What
silverfoxart.com.
happened to her is awful. And it should have never happened. And I know Joe feels the same way. And I know that President Obama feels the same way. But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there. So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq. And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers
It
and
really
losers.
wasn't.
Donald
No,
Trump,
he called it. She
who
did
went
the
to
suckers and
Arlington
losers lie again.
Cemetery
No, the
and
issue.
stood above the graves
The
of
issue
our
with
fallen heroes.
the concussions.
and said,
He didn't know that there were concussions
What's
at
in
the
it for
time,
them?
and they were
Because, of
concussions.
course, you
Is
know,
what they
he
were.
only thinks about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain, a great American hero. And Donald Trump says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And this is very important when you want to talk about who is the current commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads
Which the
of
intelligence
American
community
soldiers.
is
And
split
you know what a
on
bounty is?
and doesn't believe is a
It's
credible
somebody
report.
puts a price on your head, and they will pay it if you are killed. And Donald
Again, with the
Trump had
condescending.
talked at least 6
Don't you
times
know what
to
this
Vladimir
is, you dumb
Putin,
American people?
and never brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never do that.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden would, but Joe Biden
Yeah.
would hold Russia to account.
Wow,
for
Captain
any
Dallas gave me
threat
100 lemons. Thank you,
to our
man.
nation's security or to our troops who are sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator Harris. This is such
She's
an
been
important
trying to
issue, but we
force
have
it here a
other
couple of
important
times
issues
tonight,
as
I've
well. And
noticed.
I want to make sure we have a chance
I really have to
talk about.
respond to that.
I'm-
Look, she has
15 seconds because
Well, I gotta
we're
have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that. Look.
Well, I'm sorry, but Vice President
Look,
Pence, you've
I-
had more time than
look,
she's
the-
had
the
so far.
slander-
No,
against
he has
President
not
Donald
had more
Trump.
time than she's had.
regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
But
Let
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
the
Vice
American
President Pence,
people deserve-
you know,
Susan,
Vice
the
President
American
Pence,
people deserve
I
to
didn't,
know
Vice President
that-
Pence, I did not.
She doesn't
you
jump
know,
in when
Susan,
Kamala
I did
goes
not
over time
create
like
the
that.
rules for tonight.
And
Joe
Kamala's
Biden-
gone over time many
Your
times.
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's
I-
debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you,
Go right ahead.
which is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
You've been
So I wanna
timing
go
them.
ahead and move to the next topic.
It's
which
she's
is
gonna
an
yeah the
important one,
moderator's
as the
gonna
last
catch some
topic
flack
was,
for this
and
because
that
she
the
is
Supreme
clearly letting Kamala talk more.
On Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states. Vice President Pence,
Well,
you're
of
the
course.
former
Why do you think
governor of
military
Indiana.
ballots keep ending up in
Roe
ditches?
v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service
Yep.
members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump.
I went over the laws on
didn't
that.
hesitate.
We were allowed to do
Qasem
that.
Soleimani is gone.
That assassination.
But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's
See, there you
it's
go.
explainable. Because history records that Joe
There's
Biden
not a
actually
big pro-Biden
opposed the
element
against
of the
Osama bin
military.
Laden.
Certainly not in the combat arms
It's
element.
absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have. in
Very
President
good thing.
Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Now, she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family.
Yeah,
the
cases
Supreme
need
Court
to
of
be
the
brought
United
before the
States.
courts.
And our hope is, in the hearing next
It's
week,
not-
unlike Justice Kavanaugh,
it's not how some
received
people are
with
portraying
treatment
it.
from you and others, but we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we
Yep.
saw before.
Thank you, Karen.
The Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before,
Please follow everybody if
when
you haven't done so
Judge
yet.
Barrett was being
Thank you for the
confirmed
follow.
for the Court of
Appreciate that.
Appeals, expressed concern that the
Relax.
dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is
up.
that when the hearing takes place, that
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
Judge
How come
Amy
we don't
Coney
use the
Barrett will
light
be
and bell
respected,
system
Thank you,
anymore
Vice
like we used to?
President.
voted and
Where it would
confirmed
tell
by
you
the
you
Supreme
had,
Court of
you
the
know, 15
Senator
seconds or
Harris,
10 seconds to
you're
wrap
the
up.
senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion? And you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. First of all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in
Except
fact,
you have-
Joe, if elected, will be only the
You have
second,
knocked her for her faith.
practicing Catholic as President of the United States. On the issue of this nomination,
Hard to be a practicing Catholic
Joe
if
and I
you
are very
reject
clear,
one
as are
of
the
the
majority of
core
the American people.
foundational tenets
we are
of Catholicism.
27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable
Separate
Care
DNA,
Act.
not your
Like,
body.
Literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the
Oh.
virus. Donald Trump
Republicans
is in
are
court
going
right
to
now
prevent
trying
you
to
from
get rid
getting
of the
health care
Affordable
because
Care
you had
Act. And I
COVID.
said it before, and it bears repeating. This
Wow.
means that there will be no more protections if they win for people with pre-existing
They're going
conditions.
full fear, man.
This means that over
Full
20
fear
million
porn.
people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay
Exactly,
on your parents'
Roland.
coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear.
Ooh,
They're trying to
1,000
get rid of
messages.
the Affordable
Nice.
Care Act.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public
Thank you,
option or
Senator.
private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare.
What do we need to
eligibility
change things for?
Thank you,
Obamacare was such a
Senator.
great
That's true
thing.
leadership.
She defended
You know,
Obamacare earlier.
you
What do we need to change
mentioned,
healthcare for?
Earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining
Exactly,
protections
Barry.
for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration is supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president
Yeah, it
says,
strikes down the Affordable
President
Care
Trump
Act. It has
says
nothing
that
to
he's
do
gonna
with the
protect
pre-existing
people
conditions.
With pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was
Yes,
one
he
of the
has.
toughest nuts to crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have
Every
access to
GOP plan
affordable
had
insurance
protections for
if the
pre-existing
Affordable Care
conditions,
Act
every
is
single
struck
one.
down?
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part,
She's
I
shaking
would
her
never
head, but
presume
she
how Judge
literally
Amy
just said
Coney
that.
Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden
Yes,
going to pack
yes,
the court
yes.
if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme
They
Court.
keep
during
asking
presidential
Joe and
election
Kamala
years
that
from George
question,
Washington
and they
to
have
Barack
refused
Obama.
to answer for
Presidents have
months now.
nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules.
Yep.
Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would
Good for
really
you,
like
Mike.
to know.
Good for you.
If Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed at the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more.
She's not going to answer
In
it.
1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the
No,
question.
Mr.
Yes.
Vice
Answer the
President,
question.
I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Answer the question.
Okay. In 1864, one of the, I think, political heroes, certainly of the president, I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States.
Yep, she's not
And
answering.
then that person can select
Since
who will serve
since
for a
at
lifetime
least the year
in the
1900,
highest court of our
every
land.
time there has been a
And
vacancy
so
in the
Joe and
final
I
year
are
of a
very
president,
clear. The
somebody has
American
been
people are
nominated.
voting right now.
And I think
And it
26
should be
times
their
they have
decision
been confirmed.
about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you,
And
Senator
the
Harris.
So for
Susan, are
120
voting
years,
right now, they'd like to
this
know
is
if
a
you and
routine
Joe
thing.
Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Let's talk about
You
packing.
once
Come
again
on,
gave a
it's
Oh, my
non-answer. Joe
God,
Biden
she's-
gave a non-answer.
trying to answer you
The
now.
American
No,
people
you're not
deserve a
trying to
straight
answer.
and
Holy
if you haven't figured
smokes.
it out yet, the straight answer
She's in
is
trouble.
they are going
He's
to
got her in a
pack
corner
the
and she doesn't know what to
Supreme
do.
Court
Look at her body
if they
language.
somehow win this
Oh my
election.
God, look at her body
Men and
language.
women,
Vice President,
I
I
got to tell you,
think
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme
She gonna
Court,
listen to a rap
if you
album or
cherish
light
the
a joint
separation
right
of
now?
powers,
Woo.
you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat.
Look at
Yeah,
that
let's talk
face
about
change.
packing the court then. Let's talk about the
Please.
fact. Yeah, I'm about to.
He asked you like
So-
3 minutes ago.
The Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned.
She still won't
I've
answer.
looked the appointments for lifetime
She
appointments
still
to the federal
won't
courts,
answer.
district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You
Oh,
wanna
so
talk about
she's not only
packing a
not
court.
going to
Let's
answer
have
the
that
question,
discussion.
she's going to turn it into a race question.
Thank you, Senator. Let's
She
go
never
on and
answered.
Talk about the issue
Never
of
answered.
racial
Never
justice.
I just want the
answered.
record reflect she never answered that. Right? You remember, maybe the next debate, Joe Biden. I think the American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President.
Oh, that was good. She got
In March,
smoked on
Breonna
that one,
Taylor,
dude.
A 26-year-old emergency room
Whoa.
technician in Louisville was shot and killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into her apartment. The police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds.
Here's more
into the
info
apartment.
on
They
the
say they
Abraham
were
Lincoln
acting
Supreme
in
Court vacancy.
self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn
You got it.
what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And
You're talking about Breonna Taylor, I
It brings
missed
me
it.
to, you know, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man
Breonna Taylor's
was
boyfriend now
tortured
says she's the
and
one that
killed
shot at cops.
under the knee of an armed
And what
uniformed
Chauvin
police
did
officer.
was universally derided by everybody in the
And
country.
people around our
But the fact
country
remains, Chauvin did
of
not kill
every
George
race,
Floyd. George Floyd
of
killed George
every
Floyd.
age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm.
We thought the boyfriend had fired. The boyfriend
Fighting.
says that Breonna Taylor's the one who
for us
fired at
to
officers
finally
and
achieve
shot
that
one, and
ideal
he
of
nearly
equal
died.
justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests.
Oh yeah, peaceful protest.
And
Okay.
I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm
Buck.
a former career prosecutor.
Oh, that was
I know
good.
what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national
No,
registry
he wouldn't be.
for police officers who break
George
the law.
Floyd didn't
We
die
will,
from
on
the
issue
knee.
of criminal
George
justice
Floyd
reform,
overdosed.
get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and
Thank
we
you.
will decriminalize marijuana, and
Thank
we
you,
will
Senator Harris.
we will expunge the records of those who have
Thank you,
been
Senator
convicted
Harris.
of marijuana. This is
Thank
the
you,
time
Senator
for
Harris.
leadership on a tragic, tragic issue
Senator
Yeah,
Harris,
of
you're
she's straight up
unarmed black
lying.
people in America. Who
Thank
have
you,
been
Senator
killed.
Harris. Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you.
I think they
In
do.
the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd.
And there
Justice
isn't
will be
anybody
served.
out there who said it was.
But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. It was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist. And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day that President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room.
Yep.
And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. But we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American neighbors and all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership, we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done from day one, and that is improve the lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice President.
Record unemployment, record investments in
Pence, your time
education,
is
and we'll
up.
fight for school choice for all of our members.
Thank you, Vice
I'd
President.
like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage.
One
who
of her
prosecuted for-profit
colleagues
colleges
blasted her
for taking
today
advantage
ahead
of our
of this.
veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
He did twice.
And
Not true.
And he's
it
done so
wasn't like
well
he
over
didn't
20
have a
times.
chance.
What's in Pence's
He
hair?
didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed,
Is that a fly?
stand back.
Stands
Stand
right out
back.
on his hair, doesn't it? There's going to be
And
memes about that tomorrow.
This is a part of the pattern
Yep.
of Donald Trump's.
Kamala, straight up
He
lying.
he called Mexicans rapists and
No,
criminals.
he didn't. Another
He
lie.
instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. He on the
Wasn't
issue
a
of
Muslim ban.
Charlottesville,
Another lie.
where
Wow,
people
all
were
of the old
peacefully
tropes.
protesting
All of them.
the need for racial justice. where
She's
a
gonna
young
get
woman
fact-checked
was
into
killed. And on the
oblivion
other side, there
tomorrow.
were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets.
The guy who carried the tiki
anti-Semitic
torches, who she's calling
slurs.
neo-Nazi, has
And Donald
endorsed
Trump, when
Joe
asked about
Biden.
it, said there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the President of the United States. And America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a
Charlottesville lie
president who
rears its head
brings
again.
Our country together.
Senator Harris.
And
All of
recognizes
this
the
is
beauty in our
debunked
diversity
nonsense.
and the
Every
fact
single
that we
bit.
all have so much
Total
more in common
Joseph
than what
Goebbels
separates us.
on display.
President Pence, let me give
Repeat a
you
lie
a
until it
minute
becomes the
to
truth.
respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this
Yep.
country, Susan,
Yep.
is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has
Yep.
done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
Oh,
I really need to
Ooh,
make this
she tried to
point.
cut him off right
When
then
you
and
were-
there.
When you were
right then
DA
and there.
in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were
Over 20
19
times that Trump has
more
condemned white
likely to be
supremacists. Here you go.
prosecuted for minor drug
Enjoy it.
offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney
Thank you.
General of California,
Thank you,
you
Vice President.
increased the disproportionate incarceration of
Thank you.
blacks in California. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California.
That is true.
You didn't lift a finger to
you.
pass the first step back.
This is
on
what killed her
Capitol Hill.
campaign when
I mean,
Tulsi
the
Gabbard
reality is
assassinated
your
her on
record
stage.
speaks
Thank you,
for
Vice
itself.
President.
President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President
We fought for
Pence.
educational choice
Thank
and
you
opportunities for African
for the
Americans.
follow. I
all of
appreciate
Thank you,
that.
sir.
And we'll do it for 4
Thank you. You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election.
Yeah, she's trying to save her.
itself.
Listen, he attacked my record. I would like an
Yeah, she was Indian
Let
then.
me
You're
give
right.
you 30 seconds because
Wait,
we're running out of time.
why does she get a
appreciate
30-second response when everybody else has been
First of
getting?
all,
Pence has been getting 15-second
Having
responses.
served as the Attorney General
Kamala
of the
gets
state
30
of
now?
California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes,
Thank you.
not only
Which
Thank you,
is
Senator
I would like to
something
go
that
through-
only
These are points that
amateurs
you made earlier in
who
the
don't
hour,
have
and I wanna
any
talk
mixed
about the
martial
election
arts or
itself
Brazilian
before we have
Jiu-Jitsu
to-
But I want to
experience
talk
would say.
about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the
support
first
body cameras.
to initiate
I support
a
that.
requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because, yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work.
The implicit
of
bias of
instituting
black police
reforms that
officers
were
who are
about
more likely to
reinvesting in
fire on black
reentry.
suspects
This is
than
the
any
work
other
that we
racial
have done and
demographic
the
in
work
law
we will do
enforcement.
going
That's an implicit
forward. And
bias.
again, I will not be lectured
Thank you, Lee.
by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities
sure we
safe
passed 30
and a
seconds,
commitment to
right?
reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I'd like to pose the
Oh, she heard me.
first.
There we go.
I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump
Exactly.
has several times
I'm a
refused
big
to
proponent of
commit
body
himself
cams,
to a
100%.
peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins
God.
and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful
What?
transfer of power, what steps would you and
What
Vice
kind of
President Biden
BS
then
line of
take? What would
questioning is this
happen
crap, dude?
next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of
It's because the Bushes are in the
Cindy
deep
McCain,
state, and
John Kasich,
Trump beat up their little brother.
over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are
Trump's got a
supporting our
ton
campaign.
of generals
And I
on
believe
his
they are doing
side
that
as well.
because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our
Pence is going to hit her with law
and
enforcement
to fight for
endorsements
the
here in just a
integrity
second.
of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy.
Oh, we
And
got
here's what I'd
106
like to
people
say to
watching right now.
everybody.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate
Vote.
that. If you haven't hit that
Please
follow
vote.
button, please
Vote
do. We
early.
stream
Come up
every
with a
single
plan to
day
vote.
at
Go to
3 o'clock for my radio show on
iLoveVote.com. You can also
95.3
go
MNC.
to JoeBiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win.
Thank you, Poppin'.
And we will not let anyone
In your
subvert our
jammies.
democracy
Nice.
with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate
Thank you for the
stage last
diamond. I
week,
appreciate that.
when again in front of 70 million people, he openly
Throat's getting dry now. I'm going to
attempted
cough
to
COVID all
suppress
over you.
the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election.
This is the same
If Vice
conspiracy they
President
spread
Biden was
about Trump
declared
the
the winner
last
and
election,
President Trump refuses
and then
to
it was
accept a
them who
peaceful
refused to
transfer of
accept the
power,
results.
what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
We're up 15 followers tonight.
Well, Susan,
Oh,
first
cool.
and foremost, I think we're going to win this election.
Goal is to get to 1,000. We're
Because
trying to
while,
build up
Joe
D
Biden and
Live.
Kamala Harris rattle off
We
a
don't
long
do
litany,
YouTube or Facebook or Twitter
the
anymore.
establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years. President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have
Well,
every
Sapphire,
confidence
I
that
appreciate
those same
the
Americans
donations.
that
Thank
delivered
you.
that historic victory in 2016. They see this president's record.
Yep, exactly,
where we rebuild
Alex.
our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we
Take care,
stood
Comet.
with the men and women of law
See you tomorrow,
enforcement every
bud.
single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. When you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election.
Yup.
It's amazing.
Yup.
When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States,
Good for him.
the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign.
They did.
I mean, there were documents released this
She's not
week
going to be
that
able to
the CIA
deny any of
actually
that
made
now.
a
It's all
referral,
fact.
to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call.
Yep.
And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. We have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it.
Friendly
I believe in all
reminder,
my heart
16
President
recent
Trump is gonna
elections
do
have
that.
been invalidated by the
You know,
courts because of mail-in ballot
I've
fraud.
written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote.
Oh.
The Utah Debate Commission
Oh.
asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High.
So you asked all of these students to write questions, but you picked one?
When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are two candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If
True.
our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along? And then she added, your examples could make all the difference to bring us together, end quote.
No,
So to
they
each
won't.
of you in
But
turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute.
this is
and
how the
respond
party system
to
is
Brecklin.
designed to raise
Vice
money and get
President,
votes,
you
is
have
to
one.
make people angry at the other
Brecklin, it's a
side.
wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America,
Buy more
we
ammo.
believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've
Yeah,
created literally
knows if
the
an 8th grader
freest
wrote
and
that.
most prosperous nation in the history of the world. But I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks
Thank you, truck driver. I
is
appreciate
synonymous
that.
with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court
Katie
of the United
Pavlich,
States.
yep.
One very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing is the two of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across
Thank
this
you, Lee. I
country. So
appreciate
I
that.
just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. But we always come
Thanks.
together and are always
It would
there
also be
for one
nice
another.
if Pence,
Times
in
of
addressing
need,
this,
we've
would also
especially
say,
learned that.
and it would really help
that
if the
difficult
president
is
wasn't
issue.
attacked for simply eating
Senator
the
Harris,
foods that he
what would you
likes
say
to eat.
Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear
Oh
your
my
words,
God.
Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on
not
who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we
Oh,
should aspire
Lord.
to. And that,
I am
that
not
brings me to
commenting.
Joe Biden.
I'm not.
One of the reasons that Joe decided
No,
to
I didn't mean to mute anybody.
for
What the heck?
president is after
I
Charlottesville.
didn't. No,
which we
no,
talked
no.
about
I didn't mean to mute anybody. Hold on,
it
hold on,
so
hold on.
troubled him
No, no,
and
no.
upset
I didn't.
him like
Sorry.
it did all of us.
Stop.
That there was
Stop
that kind
scrolling,
of
you bastards.
and division. What
I
propelled
did not
Joe
mean to
to run
mute
for
you. I
president
didn't mean that. That was an
to
accident.
see that over the course of the last 4 years,
Did
what
not mean it.
Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president.
I'm not gonna
Joe Biden
ask Boomer
has
Tech
a
to post
history
that sticker again. But if
lifting
Boomer
people
Tech
up
posted that sticker
and
again,
fighting for their dignity.
I wouldn't
I mean, you
delete
have
it.
to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because
Yeah, she
we
avoided
fight for
every
each
major
person's voice
major
through
question
their
that was
vote,
directed
and we get
specifically
engaged
at
in
her.
this election
That
because
wasn't designed.
you have the ability
thank you,
through your
that
work
wasn't designed to
and
be an attack
through
on Trump.
eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
God, I've been talking a
Thank
lot
you,
today.
Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us
So
tonight.
Kamala answered
We
every
wanna thank
biased question that
also
was a
the
leading
University of
question that was
Utah for
designed
its
to attack Trump, but
hospitality.
she didn't
And most of all, our
answer
thanks
almost.
to all the
Well, she didn't
Americans
answer most of the
who
questions that were
watched this
specifically
debate
directed
tonight.
at her.
Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First Lady, and everyone who is battling COVID-19.
Joe has known
The
children
second
also.
presidential
Oh,
debate
God.
is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us then.
Oh, man. All right. Well, there you go. Don't you know? Go try to shake her hand, Mike. Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this stream, we stream my radio show on 95.3 MNC in South Bend, Indiana. We stream it every single day, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I certainly hope that you will follow and stick around and join us on a regular basis. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, stuff. Yeah, stuff. Aw, Kamala Harris's husband is the only one to wear a mask. All right, everybody stand there and take pictures. Be the only guy with a mask. Don't feel self-conscious at all. It's okay. It's all right. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. All right, so let me just go ahead. I'm going to mute that, okay? I'm going to mute the debate. So we'll let the screen continue to play, and we'll address a couple of things that ended up happening on the debate stage. So what do you all think? Again, debates are not about facts. Debates are about the pageantry and whether or not you can trap an opponent. That's what a debate is about. So what do you think happened there? Do you think that it was a draw? Do you think Kamala won that thing, or do you think Mike Pence won that thing? And remember, debates are about the pageantry and trapping your opponent. The facts don't really matter in a debate. You like this one? Yeah, this is the first time I've really done it, and I've been considering doing it for a while now. And I enjoyed this thoroughly. You know, got some new followers, hanging out on the live stream. So, I really appreciate that. That's good stuff. Like I said, we don't do the streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Facebook anymore. We do all of our free live streaming here on DLive now. All right, let's see if we actually have anybody who thinks that Kamala won this thing. I don't know that we. Let's just go. All right, I'll just get rid of that. Yeah, we'll just remove debate. We don't need to listen to all the damn chit chat. So, well, and here's okay. So here's my initial and early analysis. I'll go through the fact checking a little bit tonight and then tomorrow before the show. And most of you know that when I do the radio show, I usually have a 3-minute clip. I didn't do it the last time because I'm, again, broadcasting from home instead of the radio station. She fumbled and squirmed in her seat a lot. Her body language was not good. And you could tell that she was losing control of her emotions, which Biden lost control of his emotions. And as I told you before, heading into this thing, Pence is just this constant Northern Star type personality. I know Mike Pence. He was the governor of this state. Obviously, I interviewed him a lot as a result of that. Was invited onto his campaign bus at one point. Wasn't able to go, but to tour around with him. He actually wanted me on the campaign bus with him going around the state of Indiana. Just a super nice guy. And I've not run into what some people have run into with him not being a likable person. The Mike Pence that I have met, and again, it could be a facade. The Mike Pence that I have met has always been a decent human being and a good dude. My friend Pat Miller over at WOWO, he is close friends with the Pence family, and he says the same thing. So I guess it just kind of comes down to your politics and your opinions of what they believe. But at the end of the day, Pence is just this. It's like this Northern Star guy. He's a constant thing. He's not going to change. He's not going to be whipped into a frenzy. He's not going to, lose an emotional battle with somebody. And that showed tonight. I told you heading in here that her behavior was going to be one of those things that may make an appeal to independent voters, or I should say her lack of ability to maintain composure. And there you go. You got Mike Pence was composed, was gracious, was friendly and likable and complimentary the entire night. And Kamala Harris was the exact opposite of that. So we'll see what independents think. Again, the left is going to say that she won. The right is going to say that he won. Ultimately, they don't really matter. All that matters is the independents. And will the independents be swayed by either of them? I think that if you are an independent who is looking away from the political vitriol, Pence was your guy tonight. And there is no denying that Mike Pence painted her in a corner at least twice, one with that Supreme Court packing question where she straight up refused to answer. I think that the debate moderator tomorrow, when the analysis gets out about the speaking times, is going to catch a lot of flack. There's no doubt that she was speaking over Pence. She gave Kamala Harris longer times to respond. And here's the thing, I've moderated debates many times in the past, and this is not a difficult job. So you've got your little warning symbol for 10 seconds or whatever it is, and you've got to wrap up your point and kind of get out of there. People go over that. That's just going to be a part of it, as long as they're not abusing it too much. You do 2 minutes for the direct question, 2 minutes for the response, and you do a minute or two for them to fight it out over that response. It really isn't that hard, but they can't nail down the presidential debate stuff. Maybe they like that there's some kind of a controversy at the end of all of these things or something. I don't know. So a couple of things that I just picked up here from my stack of show prep that I keep around all the time. I did the 20 times Trump has publicly denounced white supremacy. I sent that through the stream just in case you missed it. That lie came up multiple times. I don't need to give you the Charleston lie about very fine people. That didn't happen. There's 4 groups that showed up in Charlottesville, and you had people who didn't want the statues up. You had people who did want the statues up, who were all normal, sane, reasonable people peacefully protesting. Then you had Antifa, and you had some racists on the other side. Those racists were led by Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer has endorsed Joe Biden. Kamala Harris has not acknowledged that, to my knowledge. Local police also said that Antifa, a domestic terrorist organization, they were the instigator of the violence that day. They were filling soda cans with cement, and they were throwing those. So let's take a look at, excuse me, I've been talking all day. What is this now? So we got 4 hours. It's like 7 hours that I've been talking on the radio today. Radio or live stream. So a study has found signs that the severity of COVID-19 and the viral loads of those infected that they carry may be fading. This is from Wayne State University. This is in line with a bunch of research going back several months, that the virus is becoming more contagious but less deadly. And it's going to become a seasonal strain that we deal with on a regular basis and will be a part of your normal flu vaccine cocktail, okay? So Wayne State University has written that the amount of the virus that is carried in a patient's system continues to drop, meaning that when people get COVID, and they can test positive for COVID, but the amount of virus that's in them is much less, which is why people are now getting over COVID in about 3 days. On average, you get over the symptomatic version of COVID in about 3 days, just like the president did, and the president is, of course, in one of the key danger demographics. Then you have former vice president and chief science officer for Pfizer. His name is Dr. Mike Yeadon. So he was the chief science officer for Pfizer, who again is behind Moderna in their vaccine trial. He says that half or even almost all of the tests for COVID are false positives. Now, you have to understand something. This has been a real issue. I talked with Dr. Dahlia about this a few weeks ago. You can go and listen to that interview on Podbean. So there is different sensitivities on the tests. A lot of the tests that we're doing right now are too sensitive. As a result, now what Dr. Mike Yeadon is talking about here is this other report that we talked about. What day was that? That was September 1st on the radio show. I told you about a new report that up to 90%, up to 90% of confirmed COVID-19 cases might not actually be contagious. So again, this is based on the test. So they have the virus, they just don't have enough of the virus in them. The viral load is too small to transfer to somebody else. So that is up to 90% of new positive cases of COVID. So when we have these spikes after Labor Day, which we're expected to have, we have these spikes. That doesn't necessarily mean that these people are in danger of spreading it to 4 or 5 other people. So now you've got, that report on September 1st. Okay, so that's over a month ago. And now you have the former chief science officer at Pfizer. So he obviously knows what he's doing. He says that half or even almost all of the tests for COVID are now false positives. He also argues that the threshold for herd immunity may be much lower than previously thought, which is something that is now a universal truth in the scientific community. I was called a quack when I first started telling people that doctors were talking about this, and we now have the most prestigious epidemiologists and virologists in the world all saying that COVID herd immunity is about 43%. And that's not even adjusting for the age groups. The CDC says if you're under the age of 50 years old, you have a higher likelihood of dying from the seasonal flu than from COVID-19. For those of you who might say, what about your lungs and your kidneys and your heart? Turns out the heart study is complete trash. And there are new studies now that rip that German study apart about heart damage with COVID. And very rarely are there reproductive, kidney, or lung issues after COVID. Early on, that was an issue. We thought that it might have been tied to smokers, but now we find out that that is just an extremely rare side effect that we almost never see in the current active strains of the virus. If we want to talk about the Trump administration, remember the Trump administration was criticized by the left, and basically, so if you go to the Discord server, look on the very top of text channels. It says contests. Very top of the text channels says contests. If you're on the Discord server, so you'll look up there. It's above emergency call screener. So you'll see premium subscribers, Biden quotes, server boosters, text channels, and then contests. It is right there. So you can go ahead and do it that way. So anyway, back to the criticism of the Trump administration on the viral response. What ended up happening is they were saying that Trump didn't take the virus seriously, and that's why nothing got done. Well, now they're saying that he did take it seriously, but he kind of misled everybody. And Trump has said from the very beginning, and we were telling you from the very beginning too, that you want to avoid a panic here because it's going to lead off to panic buying, and that is exactly what ended up happening the moment the media went fearmonger on this thing. So it was interesting that she brought up the toilet paper thing because it was media fearmongering that actually led to that. So let's go through just real quick on the timeline, because one of the things that you're just not going to be able to take away is that the Trump administration acted very early, months before anybody else wanted the president to act or thought that he should act, the very first presidential, well, I should say the very first Trump administration action on COVID was on January 6th. Now, remember, China admitted on December 31st that the virus existed. So less than a week later, the Trump administration had already enacted the travel notice to Wuhan, China, because of the virus. Now, at that time, friendly reminder, at the time, the World Health Organization, China, and every medical expert were saying that the virus wasn't transmitted from person to person, that the virus was contained, that the virus wasn't dangerous, okay? All of that we now know was a lie, and the WHO has now admitted that that was a lie from the very beginning and that they knew the moment they found out. So while China admitted this on December 31st, whistleblowers told us about the virus on December 19th. So on January 6th, the Trump administration took their first actions. They then took more actions on the 7th, the 11th, the 17th, the 20th, the 21st, the 23rd, the 27th, the 29th, and the 31st. And so less than a month after we learned of the virus, a coronavirus public health emergency was declared by the Trump administration. He was, again, called xenophobic. He was accused of distracting from the impeachment trial. The House Intelligence Committee with Adam Schiff was being briefed with regularity on the coronavirus by the Trump administration. None of those Democrats told the American public about it. So when they go out there and tell you that the president didn't tell you the truth, there's a lot of Democrats who are getting those briefings who could have easily blown the whistle. They chose not to. You have to ask them why. There was one point where the entire Senate was briefed by the Trump administration, but it was the final day to submit questions in the impeachment trial, and almost no senators from the Democrats showed up. Almost none. So these are all basic facts here. So at the end of January, the Trump administration had declared a public health emergency because of the coronavirus, and Biden, again, blew it off and held campaign rallies in March, saying that Trump was, again, just trying to distract from impeachment. So it's just a friendly reminder of what ends up happening when you start lying about the timeline. But if you have the timeline, you can easily throw this back into people's faces. Luntz called it for Pence, so it must be true. Oh, man. I think Pence did a pretty good job. If MSNBC calls it a draw, then Pence must have trounced her. Yeah, that's true. Is that what they did? Did they call it a draw? ABC saying that he won too? Oh, MSNBC did call it a draw. Yeah, that means he won. So, yeah, this is exactly why Pence was chosen. They're saying that Pence avoided answering questions. He avoided one. He did. He avoided one. But she avoided many. So I almost commented on him avoiding it too. But, well, actually, you know what? No, I changed my mind because he was avoiding it, but he addressed a previous point and then came back to climate change. So he actually didn't avoid it. He did answer that. So, yeah, Pence, I don't know. Did Pence avoid answering a single question? I'm not sure that he did. I was thinking it when he was talking about it, but that was a two-part question. He answered the first part, and then he came back to the climate change, because they asked if he thought that climate change was an existential threat, and he answered something about the economy, and I was like, oh, he's going to avoid it, but then he came back to it. So my apologies. You don't think he answered the pre-existing conditions? Well, okay, that's fair. He probably didn't go into as much detail as he should have on that. That's a fair point. But did he denounce white supremacy again? He talked about Trump doing it, but Pence didn't offer a fresh condemnation of it. Exactly. Oh, my God. Yeah, I uploaded a podcast today. Yep. Susan Page is going to get slammed. She's going to get slammed, dude. I mean, that was a terrible moderating job. It was much better than Chris Wallace, but it was a terrible job. I'll bet there's a circus on CNN. I'm not going to watch it. I have spent enough time working today, thank you, and my day tomorrow will be long because of it, but I'm not going to do it today. Yeah, we were posting that too, Alex. So let's take a look at the mortality thing, because the debate moderator lied when she said that the United States had a worse response than almost every other industrialized country. That is not true. If you look at the observed case fatality ratio, Mexico is the worst in the world, followed by Ecuador, but the United Kingdom is up there. France, Spain, Brazil, and then the U.S. And then there's some third world countries that are in between that. And if you take New York out of the equation, the United States jumps way up on the list for having a positive response. And New York, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, maybe some other states, but those 3 states are the most egregious. They're the ones that violated the CDC guidelines and put infected people, including young infected people, in senior care living facilities and caused the virus to wreak havoc on senior citizens. I called for Wallace to be fired the other day because Wallace had blamed Trump for the virus at the debate, and now we know that the Cleveland Clinic allowed 11 infected people to work on the debate. Oh, on the abortion one? Well, it's kind of hard, when we're talking about the Supreme Court and the abortion issue. I wish that people would just say, look, there has to be a case brought before the Supreme Court that argues this point. The Supreme Court can't just automatically overturn Roe v. Wade. I wish that they would just say that, but they don't. And look, if Roe v. Wade does for some reason get overturned, highly unlikely, but for some reason, if it does get overturned, the power then goes back to the states at the state level, and then you assume that federal Congress will start working on an abortion bill. And that's how it's going to happen. So it's really not this horrible thing that people keep talking about. And obviously abortion is horrible. I'm just talking about from their perspective, horrible. Yeah, Wallace is a fraud. There wasn't a hoax. It was just this deranged Canadian lady who somehow got a gun across the border. Was it a lady or a dude? I don't know. Whatever it was. CNN versus Rick Santorum. Oh, Rick Santorum. I'm not a fan of his anyway. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, you banned the Turkish flag, and all of a sudden I don't have any Turkish trolls on the live stream anymore. What's that about? Wow, that's funny. They censored Pence's comments about China. Oh, that's great. Well, that's true. Time difference and everything else. I don't know, the creature was arrested and charged. Yeah, there's still some more stuff that needs to come out about that, but they haven't released everything. Well, the thing is Kamala Harris should have learned, because Tim Kaine, I swear to God, I think I commented on my old Twitter account before I got banned. Tim Kaine came out, he was acting like the dude had just snorted a line of coke. And he was all over the place. It was crazy. And Pence really didn't have to do anything but just glare at him in that Pence fashion, Oh, he liked how very thoughtful she looked at Pence. Yeah, okay. Are we sure that we're related to Anderson Cooper? Are we sure we're related? Well, yeah, I'm sure he remembers the Richard Murdoch moment very well. That's a good point. All right. Well, hey, anything else? What do you guys think? What do what did you guys think of the format? A couple of people really liked it, but what about the rest of you? You like doing this sort of stuff? Should I do more of it? Anyone? Don't forget, if you are on the Discord server, if you're a member of the Discord server, we set up a contests channel to win the Trump skull Punisher, or the Trump Punisher skull with the American flag. I'm clearly tired. And that is the American flag face Trump Punisher skull, made by hand by silverfoxart.com. Make sure you go check them out. Follow them on Instagram, silverfoxart.com. If you're on the Discord server, again, go to the contest channel. It's the very top text channel, and just comment on the post to register to win. Yeah, you all liked it? You like me more than Crowder? Wow, that's high praise. I really like Crowder. There's not a lot of people that I really like in this business. There's a lot that I feel are good at it, but as far as a fan, there isn't any. Because I do this, it's like it's hard for me to really find somebody that I kind of latch onto. But I really do like Crowder. Crowder, I'm an actual fan of. I'm not a fan of a lot of other people. Do more of it. So people really seem to like this. All right, cool. Very cool. And like I said, if you're new here and you're just hanging out, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Every single day on my radio show in South Bend, I live stream the radio show right here on D Live. And that's at 3 o'clock every afternoon Eastern time. It goes till 6 o'clock. And if you follow, you can go ahead and hang out with us on a regular basis. We'd really appreciate that. Help us grow. If you have the means, depending on your member level here on D Live, you want to host anything that I post up there, feel free to do it. And we love having you guys. Yeah, and kind of early on, I caught myself kind of talking over some of it, and I'm like, don't do that. Stay out of it. So, Darren likes it. Crowder interrupts more. Fair enough. Yeah, he usually does these watch parties too. Death to Commies wants on the Discord server. All right, well, let's set up an invite, shall we? Usually Alex is the one who is on that really quick, but I will do it for you. I don't even know if Alex is still around. So let's copy this bad boy. All right, so this is the Discord link if you would like to join. Feel free to do that. The fly was a conspiracy. Like I said, I guarantee you there's going to be some really funny Mike Pence fly memes tomorrow. See, I don't really watch any of his live stuff, so I don't know. And I was just saying the other day, I don't get a chance to really listen or watch Crowder, but I actually spent like 30 minutes the other day watching one of his 40-minute shows on YouTube. That's right, you can listen online if you go out of the area. Could I do it with a guest like Pat Miller or somebody else? I remember when you and Pat did the State of the Union together. That was a good show. The issue with Pat is, like, Pat's asleep right now, so it depends on the time that it's done. And getting Pat onto D Live might be a bit of a struggle, but we could probably do somebody else, maybe Matt Locke, my fill-in guy. You could probably have him on there. He's got his own show now. So, yeah, possible. Certainly. I'm certainly willing to do it. Oh, I want to see what Tim Pool is saying. Tim Pool's another person I'm a fan of. Pence is better at this than Trump. That is true. Pence has got a life of politics and a radio show as experience. Trump doesn't. Trump is better at Twitter, and Pence is better at debating. No doubt about that. Full reaction videos with comment would be cool. I'm looking to add more video content, and I know that I've said that quite a bit, but it's coming. Well, let's also not forget that one of the very first cases that happened was in Seattle, Washington, and that was an American who was flown on an airplane against the president's orders, flown back to the United States while infected, and infected several people on that aircraft and at the airport. And Washington, remember, Washington was one of the first outbreaks that we had, and that all happened in violation of the president's order on bringing not bringing patriots back, but repatriating Americans. Fly was infected with COVID. Hey, you could be one of those fly drones. Those exist. We got drones that look like flies and bees and wasps now. Oh yeah, SNL is definitely going to do the fly thing. Yeah, I mean CNN is a joke. Let's be honest. All right, hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I actually thought that went pretty smooth. I was fully anticipating some kind of a crazy tech glitch to happen. Really, the only thing that has happened at this point in time is that the bot for the contest that I installed on the Discord server is not working. The command, for some reason, is not triggering. I don't know why that is, so I can just manually do it. So just comment on the contest channel on Discord, and we will be able to go ahead and get that taken care of. No, she is fully eligible. She is a U.S. citizen. You have to understand, in the American legal code, if you're born in the United States and your parents are not here on a diplomatic visa, okay? If you come here on a diplomatic visa and you have a child, that child is not a citizen of the U.S. because you're on a diplomatic visa. So you're technically, everywhere you go isn't American soil. If you are illegal in this country or on a student visa or whatever, and your child is born in the United States, the American legal system, in spite of it not being the intent of the constitutional amendment, the American legal system has determined that if you are born within the borders of the United States, you are an American citizen regardless of the status of your parents. The only time that doesn't take place is if your parents are here on diplomatic visas. That's the only time that changes. Oh, they didn't do a recap on the Supreme Court thing. Gee, I wonder why SPT doesn't want to highlight the worst moment of the night for Kamala. All right, cool. Anything else before I got to bounce on out of here, ladies and gentlemen? Think I have earned a reprieve, if you will. Nah, not a problem, Stymie. Happy to help, dude. Happy to help. Like I said, that wasn't the intent of the constitutional amendment, but that's what the U.S. legal system through various court rulings has determined. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody. You know, well, I want to make sure I get this right because I got my new Stream Deck that I'm still trying to learn. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight, watching the debate. And again, if you're new here, please give us a follow. I keep saying us, but it's really just me and the audience. So please give me a follow. Definitely share all of my stuff with everybody on your social media platforms. Go to your message forums, your subreddits, your Facebooks, your Twitters, your Parlers, everywhere. Spread my stuff everywhere. My website is theburningtruth.us. So here we go, theburningtruth.us. You can get my daily show prep there, my blog post there, my podcast there, caseythehost.podbean.com. That is where my podcast is hosted, and that is also where my premium content is for premium subscribers. And the all-new website is caseyhendrickson.com. That includes a web store for you to buy some products, and we'll have some merch and things like that getting up there as well. So I posted those links for you on DLive, so you can continue to use those after I log off. But in the meantime, thank you for all of the support, all of the donations that happened today. I really appreciate that. And you all have yourself a wonderful night. For my premium subs, I will chat at you on Podbean tomorrow too. And then for everybody else, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow, right here on DLive, we'll broadcast my radio show just like we do every single day. You all have a wonderful one. Be safe, and good night.